This is TWiT.
Google's once secret Sensor Vault technology was back in the news this past week after some reporting by Thomas Brewster, who covers cybercrime, privacy, security, and surveillance for Forbes. As we know, last year, well, actually, we don't know. We know about Sensor Vault, but the news is that last year and this year, substantial damage was done to Milwaukee, Wisconsin property by some arsonists. To help locate the crime's perpetrators, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and explosives, the ATF, I guess they decided not to add an E to the end, so it's not ATFE. Anyway, they demanded that Google supply records of users of their, Android users' devices, which were located in the respective locations surrounding the times that the arsons took place. And as Brewster reports, although federal agents had used, as we know, this Sensor Vault technology before, apparently they got way more results than they were expecting. 2 search warrants requested any consumer information in Google's possession, covering, as the reporting had it, 29,387 square meters and this is the so-called geofencing range, during a course of 9 hours for 4 separate incidents. And as we know, if Android users or even iOS users running some Google apps have not turned off the defaulted on location history option, their physical whereabouts is being continually tracked and archived within Google's giant database called Sensor Vault. And when we first covered this, we learned that, as I think I recall, that data went back 14 years. I mean, so it was from the beginning of Google time, like all of the location information that they've been able to accrue, they were. And there's never really been a clear, as far as I know, a clear indication of why this is going on. In this case, Google found just shy of 15,000 qualifying device identifiers. So I guess this was a high traffic area. There was 1,449 qualifying device identifiers, which were found in Sensor Vault and were sent to the ATF pursuant to this subpoena for the ATF to comb through. So anyway, I wanted to, as I said, briefly revisit the topic with our listeners, just to remind everyone that unless they have explicitly turned it off, it's on. And we talked about this back, at the time. Google did confirm that if location history is turned off, then they will wipe it from the Sensor Vault so that you're able to do a firm, hard opt-out. But at the time, Congress, at the time of this original reporting, I think it was in the New York Times, Congress stirred and sent Google a letter asking a bunch of questions about this, and I never saw any reporting of Google's official reply. Maybe that didn't make the news, or there were other issues happening at the time. But what we learn about this kind of data collection is that at the moment, if a company has something that they're collecting for some purposes, these secrets are difficult to keep. And if they get out and the company is issued a subpoena, they can be induced to turn these things over. So a privacy respecting company, because it's really impossible apparently to keep these secrets, will not be keeping data that they may not want to be forced to turn over. And unfortunately, at this point, Google has this massive archive, and for purposes that have never been made clear. I guess it's their right to collect it if the license agreement for the devices states that's being done in the fine print, but it certainly doesn't make people happy, and it sort of demonstrates that Google is not really respecting our privacy if it's up to us to opt out in order to be removed from this kind of database. So anyway, I just wanted to just sort of remind our listeners, it's been some time since this came up, and it's, as far as we know, still going on.
I'm more upset with the law enforcement because I feel like courts should say you can't issue a subpoena for everybody within 20,000 square meters of an event. That's way too broad. I mean, the police say, well, look, we will look at videos of a bank robbery. Lots of innocent people in the bank are included in those videos. But this is a much broader sweep of, it's a fishing expedition. And I just feel like that's...
Yeah. Well, and as we talked about at the time, there have been false arrests as a consequence of this. Right. Because again, you're not actually operating from direct evidence. You're working from inferential evidence. And so you're needing to say, well, we know it's not, Sarah Jane and Susie Q because, they were somewhere else, or, we know them, or who knows what. But, they in the case that we covered at the time, they whittled it down to some guy and put him in jail for a week.
Right.
And he's still not happy. He's still threatening to sue. But
the story I saw in this was they have 2 suspects as a result of this out of the 1,500 that they rounded up. But they haven't filed charges against those 2 suspects. So I think it's a similar case where, you get a lot of information about innocent people, and it doesn't necessarily narrow it down. And bad guys, don't carry your cell phone with you next time. I mean, come on. This is something easily avoided by bad guys.
Yes. And in fact, you could use that data on your behalf. You could leave your cell phone at home, and if you are brought in as a suspect and you say, no, I was at home, go ask Google Sensor Vault.
There you go. And they don't know you didn't have it. Yeah.
Of course.
I have it turned on. I like it. It's nice to know and you would use it maybe like when you went to Europe, you would then have a track of all the places you visited. It's kind of cool to have. If you take pictures,
we used it like crazy during. When in fact, even when I was up 2 weeks ago or a couple weeks ago with you, I didn't mention it, but the night before we hung out for dinner with one of my old high school buddies who's up in in the wine country begins with an H. I forgot the name of it. Healdsburg, yes, of course. And we couldn't have found him. He was out at the end of some long, windy road, through the grapevines, and it's like, well, okay, but the map knew right where he was. So,
and the nice thing is, Apple of late and Android 2 will tell you these apps are looking at your location.
Yes.
Do you want to only do that when the app is running? And I think more and more people are aware of this. What you forget is that Android does it all the time in the background, that Google's always keeping track. So, clear your location history and turn it off unless you have a use for it. I use it, so I don't mind. And I'm not setting fires in Milwaukee either. So